What the dickens exactly is happening to the Don? What's happening to you, Don? Is it that you're getting a little old and shaky? It happens, but there's something desperately wrong. Maybe you don't recognize it, which is perhaps a sign of something. But when you listen to this video, I think you will agree with me that maybe it's time you look seriously into the idea of retiring, handing over the baton to somebody else with a more agile mind than evidently you now possess. Of course, you know we all have to thank you for your service. I mean, the poll is certainly entertaining. At least that is what it is now. Most people seem to take it seriously and don't realize that it is, as far as I'm concerned, for entertainment purposes. Certainly, that's what it has become, if that is not what it used to be. Anyway, I'll come back and I'll discuss the Don some more. Let me, though, in the meanwhile, welcome you to Jamaica 411. Thank you so much for stopping by and keeping me company as usual. If you're here with me for the first time, welcome, welcome. Please subscribe, like the video, share, and of course you may feel free to leave your comments in the comment section. To my subscribers and regular viewers, welcome back. So nice to have you. Appreciate you greatly, as well as your comments. So please go ahead and leave your comments in the comment section. You can talk to each other, because I'm so busy these days making videos. I sometimes can only peep to see what you're saying. All right, and now remember, you would want to like the video from now on, because you don't want the distraction when we get down to business. So please go ahead, give the video a thumbs up from now, and share, then return. And of course, I thank you all in advance. Great. Now let's get down to business. Now, have you all, or any of you, been noticing the Don Anderson poll recently? I mean, yes, when he was competing with Bill Johnson, the polls seem to have been a little bit more credible in terms of what we know that is going on the ground in our community and so on. And even when they say that a party is ahead or one is behind, you will have a feel of whether that is so or not. But I find Don Anderson's poll is getting more and more incredulous. And it is not only the response that is coming through, but it's the underlying data itself that is not making any sense. Let me give you an example. Look at what you're seeing on the screen. This is a poll that came out today, October 27, Sunday, in the Sunday Gleaner. And it is saying that they ask a question of 1,012 respondents. And the question they asked was, for which party are you likely to vote? I don't even know what kind of question is that. The normal question to ask when you're trying to get the party standing is, if an election were to be called today, which of the two main political parties, PNP or JLP, would you vote for? And because they're now in the mindset of an election being called today, they are telling you today what it is they would have done if the election were called. Now, there is a great deal of voter apathy in Jamaica, and it has been going on for quite some time. Certainly, this side of the century, we have not had, I don't think we have had 60% of the people coming out to vote. And in 2011, we had about 40-something percent. Or yes, I think it was 40-something percent. And what has been happening is the more and more people are on the voters list, it shrinks the amount of persons that it shows that either votes or say they will vote. That is because the young people are not participating into the process. And of course, there is a problem perhaps with the voters list where you have thousands of people migrate, but they are still on the voters list nonetheless. So when you look at the actual turnout, it is, very, very much less than what it used to be in the past. It's as if the same people are coming out to vote every time, with a few more added on each year as the young people come of age. Now, when you look at this poll, the first problem with it is the question that was asked: for which party are you likely to vote? Now, I don't know if Don Anderson is not remembering things as he's getting old and he can't remember the question that he usually asks, but it's for the past several polls now, since last year. He has been asking different questions and getting different answers, which don't make any sense when you look at the voter apathy in Jamaica, right? And not only that, when you bear out what happened in the local government election, it shows that the voter apathy still remains. Yet Don Anderson poll is showing results that are just out of this world. Now look at this one now. Here is the question: for which party are you likely to vote? Right? All right. 39.3% said PNP. 30.2% said JLP. 2.1% said the third party. 28.4% said them not sure, have not made up their mind yet, which is saying them intend to vote, but them not make up their mind yet. There is not even one person or percent, or even a quarter of a percent, or even a fraction of 1% that is saying they will not vote. That's the first problem this poll has. Never in the history of voting in this country have you ever had 100% of the people saying that they intend to vote, even if some of them said they don't make up their mind yet. That's the first problem with this poll, that wherever he went and did this poll, it was a highly political area or political areas, meaning that these are people who are interested in politics. You mean to tell me that I buck up no Christian from some of those churches where don't believe in voting? You mean to tell me that I buck up no Rasta man or nobody who no believe in voting? What about all those people who never voted in all them life? Are they telling me now? Are they trying to tell us now that all of them said them are going to vote now? Or they not make up their mind yet? What is the national imperative for that? I mean, even in the 70s where we had something like, 86% turnout, there were reasons. I mean, you could see the tension and the war, almost civil war, maybe you could call it civil war, that was going on then, that would motivate people to come out and vote. So this poll is showing something incredible. When you add together the 39.3% who said they would vote PNP and the 30.2% who said they would vote JLP, of the 100% of the persons interviewed, the respondents who said they will vote amounts to 65%. 65% are counted on Anderson, of the persons whom he interviewed, or his his people out in the field interview. 65% said them are going to vote, right? And the rest of the people now, the 28.4%, these are all now in the category of swing voters, because once I tell you they not make up their mind yet, them going to vote, that's what they're saying now. They're going to vote, but them not decide yet. These must be the swing voters, right? And the remainder, 2.1%, said you're going to vote for the third party. Any one of them, two of them will have no, I believe. No. Is this credible? Is this piece of information being put out by Don Anderson as having been found out in the field by his market research team who went out to get the information? Is it credible? Is this poll credible? Now, there is something else about this poll that I want to bring to your attention. So as you can see, it's actually 1,012 Jamaicans aged 18 years or older. And they said 39.3% indicated that they would be more inclined to vote for the PNP when the election is called, while 30.2% said they would likely cast ballots for the JLP. The figures amount to a 9.1% lead for the PNP, which they said the last time was 7.8. Now they say it's 9.1. The widest margin the PNP has held over the JLP in recent months. At the same time, 28.4% of respondents shared that they were still unsure who would get their votes. The remaining 2.1% are ready to vote for a third political party. Now, the survey was carried out from September 27 to October 3 and has a margin of error of plus or minus 3% at a 95% confidence level. I have no idea what that means. I've never seen that language before, this confidence level. So me don't know what that means, so let me leave that. Anyway, he went on to say, or the Gleaner went on to say, Anderson noted that the research was funded. Listen to this part, and this is a part that is curious and what I want to bring to your attention. Don Anderson is saying that the research was funded by non-aligned, publicly traded private sector interests, with the survey parameters determined solely by MRLS, which is Don Anderson's company. What is Don Anderson saying? He's saying that the poll was sponsored, not commissioned. That doesn't seem to be what happened here. It was sponsored by some private sector interests. Now, sponsoring a poll of this nature when there's no polling done is an admirable thing for somebody to do. And a company that is going to sponsor a poll to provide us with entertainment or provide us with information, whichever way they choose to look at it, that's an admirable thing. That's excellent. I mean, the Glean and RJR commission polls, Mellow FM commission polls, Nationwide News Network commission polls. I mean, you have polls, people who's commission polls at the university who, I think they do polls as well. It's an admirable thing. So why is it that Don Anderson is only allowed to describe them as, private sector, non-aligned, traded on the stock exchange? Because they said publicly traded. These are people on the stock exchange who obviously does not want their names or the company's name to be associated with the resultant poll. That is what this means, Everybody else is commissioning a poll, and you know that they commissioned the poll. But these private interests, these so-called non-aligned private interests, they don't seem to want anybody to know that they are the ones who are sponsoring this poll. Now, why? Why are they hiding? Why is it that they do not want to be associated with the poll? That's the first thing. Second thing is, almost every 2 months or every 3 months, the PNP was doing a Don Anderson poll, right? I think it was it Bill Clinton, who every time him go and make a decision and run a poll, was it him? I mean, if this is how they want to spend the party's money and they think that this will get them somewhere, not a thing is wrong with it. But all of a sudden, Don Anderson broke the cycle and is now running a poll, an incredible poll that is being sponsored according to him, and he made sure to say that they are non-aligned, meaning to say these people are neither PNP nor JLP, yet them going out of them way to spend either their private money or the company's money to sponsor a poll to which they do not want themselves to be aligned. This is something that would have given the company a boost. They sponsored it, and then Don Anderson was the one who went and did the poll. So this is not a PNP poll according to him. This is not a JLP poll, right? This is him running his own poll. Now, why is it? I have a feeling that you see, we in the resistance, and of course the Labour Party people and other persons in the society, we're concerned about the type of information coming out of Don Anderson polls, especially those that are commissioned by the PNP. And so what? Somebody in the private sector was asked to sponsor this poll instead. And then when I saw it initially, that this poll was being sponsored by some non-aligned, publicly traded private sector interests, I knew, I just had a feeling that the information that was going to come out of this poll was more incredulous than what has been coming out so far. And I mean, you can't get more incredulous than this. You can't get more incredulous than this, that 100% of the people, not even one, did not tell you, said them not going to vote. Not even one dege one. Everybody in the buck up on the street in however many communities, right? All of them said they intend to vote. And Don Anderson didn't see something wrong with that. This is why I'm saying he is clearly out of it. He's clearly not recognizing anymore when there is something wrong with the information that he's getting, that he needs to send his people back out into the field. He may even need to reword the questions so that they can get responses, or at any rate, the responses that they get align with responses that he was getting in the past. And in terms of what it is that the poll results determined in the past. Now he seems unable to recognize that his own poll is flawed. This is why I'm saying he's been around since, I believe he's been around since the 1970s or 80s, maybe the 80s. And maybe it's time for him to consider whether or not his brain is as fired as it used to be when he was younger. He needs to do it, because what he's doing is destroying his own credibility. He's destroying his own credibility, because anybody look at this poll, just the responses alone, even a 5-year-old says something wrong with this poll. And he's putting it out there under the claim that this was sponsored not by the PNP, by some non-political set of people in the private sector who don't want to be named and associated with the poll. Them think we're idiot? Marcus, which one of your company them? Which one of the companies them? You and Bunting Company sponsor the poll. Is it proven? Is it Tajibe, Mark? Is it Tajibe Limited? What about you, Bunting? Which one of your companies them? Is it what's it called? Ozymandias? The one that is registered, I do believe, in the Cayman Islands. Was that the company which sponsored it, or one of your major shareholders in Proven? How you go? Now, let us get now into the business of recent history of the Don Anderson poll and the hiccups. And they were coming just too fast, too many of them, too quickly, right? And I'm going to show you a few. I'm going to begin with that polling that was done for Peter Bunting, when he challenged Dr. Peter Phillips. And there were cracks showing in the Don Anderson's poll. I don't know if it's a methodology that he's using. I don't know if it's a question. I don't know if he produced proper polling and there was manipulation done after in terms of what is presented. I don't know. He has not come out and said anything to that effect. So I must therefore assume that the responses that he said he got in the field was what was dutifully reported to us by Bunting and his team of risers. Let's look at the first one. Now, this poll was reported by Nationwide News Network, Abka Fitzhenley, on the 10th of June 2019, and it says Bunting commissioned the poll. Bunting commissioned national poll shows only 19% of Jamaicans believe Phillips can bring PNP to election victory. Right? That's what his commission poll said. And who was the person he commissioned? Oh, yes, the Don. Now I'm going to let you listen to the report of something Bunting said. Let's listen.
I didn't go through every constituency and try and figure out how many delegates and whether somebody supported me or not, and try and add it up. Because arithmetic is an important thing for a politician. But not every decision you make is based on arithmetic. Some decisions are made because you feel called to make that decision. And this was a decision that I felt called to make.
So you heard Bunting. He was called to make this decision. I wonder who called him. Peter, who called you? Was it PJ? Liz would tell us says PJ called you, Was it PJ who called you and tell him must make this decision? I suspect, though Peter Bunting, that it was your ambitions that called you to make this decision. Anyway, let us continue. So the report says Mr. Bunting has released a Don Anderson poll which shows that only 19% of respondents believe that Phillips can lead the PNP to a general election victory. So the reason why I commissioned this particular poll and released the results is because he wants the PNP people to know that the party cannot win with Dr. Peter Phillips. That's the first thing he tried to do. That he hoped would influence the delegates to vote and make him the party leader, because later on he's going to be showing them polls which claims that he is the best man to challenge Brogard. You remember that? Yes. Anyway, it goes on to say, while 50% of respondents say they do not believe Phillips will be able to lead the party to a general election win, the Anderson poll, which was released by Mr. Bunting, shows that a majority of respondents believe the PNP will have a better chance of retaking state power if there is a change in its leadership. It's understood that the poll had approximately 1,600 respondents, far more than usual. As a matter of fact, the one that was commissioned, sponsored and done by Don Anderson, seemed to have done the poll himself, had only 1,012. This one had 1,600 respondents. It's a national poll, and it's a lot of money this guy spent for this. So he's now coming out to sell the poll that he commissioned. Nationwide News Network went on to say, Mr. Bunting says the poll, which was conducted between April and May this year, which was 2019, is among the reasons he's decided to challenge Dr. Peter Phillips. So apparently that was the call that he got. It was the poll. So the poll was conducted, he said, between April and May, right? So evidently this is the call he was talking about. The Central Manchester MP and former PNP General Secretary says Dr. Phillips has contributed well to the PNP. He said he does not believe Phillips will be able to lead them to a general election win over the JLP. Bunting also accused Dr. Phillips of failing to implement any transformational plans during the 2.5 years he's been PNP president. He also accused the Phillips-led PNP of repeating mistakes from the ill-fated East Portland by-election campaign and the 2016 general election loss. Yesterday, South St. Andrew Member of Parliament, Mark Golding, issued a statement declaring his support for Mr. Bunting. Golding, who's the opposition spokesman on finance, says He agrees with Bunting that Dr. Peter Phillips is unable to lead the PNP back to office. Imagine that. Meanwhile, Mr. Bunting addressed a divisional meeting in his central Manchester constituency last night and said he felt a sense of duty to offer himself to lead the PNP. North West sent an MP and opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Dayton Campbell, along with South Manchester MP Michael Peart, also addressed the meeting and endorsed Bunting's candidacy. See all the cronies them? Yes, man. Michael Stewart and Dayton Campbell both lost their seats, and that is what they got for their troubles. So this now was a Peter Bunting's commission poll that he did, and Don Anderson was the man. Yes, the man that you hear Dayton Campbell say from time to time that we trust Don Anderson. Yes, right? Now let's listen now to the next poll that I could find online. I think he did several polls as a matter of fact, but this is the second one that I found, which is very interesting. Here is Nationwide News reporting again. Don Anderson poll shows Bunting 18 points ahead of Phillips. And this was reported August 7, 2019. That's 1 month before the election, which was due on the 7th of September, 2019. Let's hear what he said.
The poll asked which of the two Peters, Bunting or Phillips, would be best suited to lead the PNP at this time. 39% favored Peter Bunting, compared to 21% for Dr. Peter Phillips. Rise United's campaign manager, Dr. Dayton Campbell, presented the findings of the Don Anderson poll.
Now, I want you to be reminded that the candidacy of Comrade Bunting at the time that this poll was done, which is between July 20 and August 2, that's roughly about 6 weeks. So in 6 weeks, he's polling at 39%, and the current leader of the party would have been there for 3 years, who is polling at 21%. So I do believe that it is very clear, or it should be very clear to the country as to what the views of the populace are, as to who is best suited to lead the party.
The Don Anderson poll was conducted nationally and included 750 respondents of voting age between July 20 and August 2. It found that 36% of the respondents believe Peter Bunting has the best chance of defeating Prime Minister Andrew Holness in a national election. That's compared to only 16% of respondents favoring Dr. Peter Phillips.
So I want to really drive home this point, that the purpose of a political party is to obtain state power so you can implement your programs and your policies. The view of the populace is that Peter Bunting leading the People's National Party gives it a substantial increase in their chances of defeating the Labour Party.
The majority of those polled, 39%, believe Mr. Bunting's challenge is a good idea at this time. Don Anderson also found that the PNP is just 5 points behind the JLP if a general election were to be called now. 35% of respondents said they would vote for the JLP, while 30% said they would cast their ballot in favor of the PNP. This, according to Dr. Campbell, is an improvement on the numbers polled in March, which showed the PNP trailing the JLP by 11 percentage points. He's contributing the bump to Mr. Bunting's challenge for the party presidency. Dr. Campbell says, based on the poll results, the time is right for a change in the leadership of the PNP.
So after that was published, the following day, the Peter Phillips camp responded. Phillips' team rubbishes Bunting commission poll, releasing own data, right? So they had a problem with it. The one PNP campaign of People's National Party President Dr. Peter Phillips has responded quickly to the poll commissioned by his challenger, Peter Bunting, that shows Bunting as the candidate who would have less challenge defeating Andrew Holness and the Jamaica Labour Party in the next general election. However, chairman of the Phillips campaign, Senator K.D. Knight, has rubbished those findings, describing them as garbled, incomprehensible, and out of line with one PNP's polling data. Clash of the polls. Who is right? Let me continue. So they're quoting the KD Knight now. The data presentation was obviously designed to confuse the public, but in particular the party delegates, who are overwhelmingly in support of the president of the People's National Party, Dr. Peter Phillips. You hear what KD said? What the intention of the poll that was done was? The data presentation was obviously, he said, designed to confuse the public, but in particular the party delegates. So they're trying the same thing again. They're running polls again to see if they can hoodwink their way into Jamaica House. I wonder what KD is saying about the use of polls. Anyway, he goes on to say, in none of the answers provided to the questions did they account for 100% of the sample size, which gave the distinct impression that the numbers were being selectively presented. So he found fault with the poll. That means to say the number them never add up, is what KD is saying. Because if you're doing a poll and you're polling, say, 1,600 people, you must, the polling figures or the percentages that you get must add up to 100%. So if you say 10% say this, 30% say that, 40% say that, when you add up everything, it must come up to 100%. And KD is saying that never happened. So that is showing that the poll was faulty, or at any rate, the presentation of the poll results was faulty. You see that? So that was a dead giveaway. This data makes no sense without knowing the size of the undecided elements. The veteran comrade also promised that the Phillips campaign will release its own poll data by the end of the week. That poll was undertaken by noted pollster Bill Johnson. So it was a clash of the titans between August 2 and 4 and had a sample size of 1,000 respondents. It had a margin of error of plus or minus 3.5%. The Anderson poll had a sample size of 750 respondents. Meanwhile, Knight also cautioned delegates against taking the findings of the Rise United campaign seriously. So I guess KD Knight will be telling all the people in Jamaica who fancy these polls and, listen to them, that, he's cautioning them not to take these findings put out by these risers who now control the PNP seriously. You heard what KD said? He went on to say, the One PNP campaign, whereas it acknowledges the right of Rise United to highlight numbers to make its own case, it is important that delegates be warned of the convenience of the results presented. Knight said, and while promising to make the results of the Johnson poll public by the end of the week, Knight gave a synopsis of those findings. This is what KD said that Bill Johnson found. On the question of if the election were being held today and Peter Phillips was party leader of the PNP and opposition leader, do you think you would probably vote for the JLP? Definitely for the JLP, probably vote for the PNP, definitely vote for the PNP, or probably would not vote as things stand now. That's a very unusual way to put it, but it's a question. So according to KD Knight, these were the responses to the questions asked. Some 34% of respondents said they would vote for wholeness. 32% would vote for Phillips. 10% were undecided. 2% declined to answer, while 22% indicated that they were not voting. When the question was asked, what if Peter Bunting were the leader of the PNP and opposition leader? 36% of the respondents indicated that they would vote for wholeness. 27% said Bunting. 12% were undecided. 2% declined to answer, and 23% said they were not voting. So if you look at these responses, when asked if Dr. Peter Phillips representing the PNP, how they would vote, And then you compare that now with how they said they would vote if Bunting was leading the PNP. If Peter Bunting was leading the PNP, the poll is showing that 2% of the respondents said they would vote for Andrew Holness. So with Bunting as leader, the PNP would have lost that 2% vote. They said now 32% would vote for Phillips if he were the party leader, while only 27% said they would vote for Bunting. So they are saying here that if they had changed the leadership to Peter Bunting, the PNP would have lost 5% of the votes that they would normally get. And then now when it comes to the 10% who were undecided, 12% would have been undecided had it been Peter Bunting leading the PNP, and an additional 1% said they would not vote. So the party would have lost voting support, according to what this poll is saying, were the party to change from Peter Phillips to Peter Bunting. So here you have two contrasting polls that was presented, one by Don Anderson and one by the Peter Phillips camp. At the end of the day, what happened? It was Peter Phillips who won, right? Peter Phillips won by only 76 votes, but he won. But not only that, whereas Bunting came up with polls, Don Anderson polls, claiming that the people in Jamaica believed that he would have been the better man for the job as opposition leader. When the general election was over, September 3, 2020, Peter Bunting lost his seat. So how it is that Don Anderson was saying that the people in Jamaica preferred him over Dr. Peter Phillips and would vote for him over Dr. Peter Phillips by what it was, I said, 18 points? And then now 1 year later, the man losing his seat? Not only did he lose his seat, he lost the seat spectacularly. In 2016, he won by over 1,000 votes. And in 4 years, all of that was reversed. And he actually lost by over 1,000 votes, but it was 2,438, if my memory serves me right, of the PNP who decided to stay home and make him lose the seat. Right? They prefer to stay home and make him lose the seat. And this is a man who was telling us that Jamaica wanted to see him representing the PNP and by extension, the Prime Minister of Jamaica. And it was a Don Anderson poll that was used. When polls were done before, and asking people of Jamaica, the respondents, who they would want to see running the PNP, Bunting never even figure in that. Didn't figure in it, but he came up with these polls with certain results, right? And he almost carried it off. But he didn't. He lost his seat, and now he's in the Senate. Right? Same strategy they're attempting to use now to see if they can get this man who is obviously not well. Something is the matter with Mark Golding, but we don't know what that is. And they're trying to see if they can hoodwink their way in getting him into Jamaica House using polls. Right? And then the pollster is getting more and more outrageous with his polls. When we were telling them the resistance and of course the labor rights and others, criticizing them and say, but hold on, where you going with poll at all about you commission your own poll and give a certain result? They went and they got, according to them, independent people. Independent, my foot? I don't believe that. Until they can come forward and tell us the name of that company that sponsored or commissioned this poll, you are not going to get me to believe that it's not Bunting and Golding that commissioned it. Commissioned it by one of the companies that they are involved in. Or they ask one of the companies to make a donation to the party by commissioning the poll. Right? And Don Anderson may think that these are non-aligned people, but they are very much partisan. So until you come out and you tell me, and the rest of Jamaica, I'm sure would love to hear who it was that commissioned this poll, then we will believe that Bunting and Golding wasn't behind it. right? And the fantastic nature of the poll, talking about 100% of the people going to come out and vote. I mean, this is so ridiculous, it's not funny. Them really take black people for big head, but that Englishman. Yes, the Englishman take with a big head bud. Him and him sidekick, that uppity Negro, Peter Bunting, descendant of slave owners, the Englishman, and the uppity Negro, Peter Bunting. Take with idiot. Then now we talk about these Don Anderson polls that were being run last year and the year before, I think, in order to settle the candidates in the constituencies and divisions. And no amount of allegations of fake poll and all kind of something was taking place. Pure problem with these polls, trying to use the polls to select the persons to represent the party against the party's constitution. Not going to say any party's constitution, it delegates them. The delegates must select who they believe is best able to represent them in the constituency. But they want to get them risers all elected and dolled up and put into a parliament so that they can now exercise full control over the PNP. They don't have it yet. So in Southeast St. Anne, they went and do some poll claiming that Wavell Hines, who is them particular riser that them wanted for the seat to replace Lisa Hanna, had 49% of the delegates vote, and they were ready to install him. Right? Then Lisa put on her foot, and the delegates and put on them foot and said the Constitution said we have the power to do this selection and we going to have it. So they ran this election. Now, when they did the poll, they claimed that Wavell Hines was 49%. Dr. Russell was at 9%, and Patricia Duncan Sutherland was 8.5%. They ran a poll, and suddenly everybody was qualified. After Lisa put on her foot and they had a demonstration, all of a sudden everybody now met the 25% threshold. When the Don Anderson went back out in the field. This is the same Don Anderson, same one. So the poll was conducted, and the delegates voted. And at the end of the day, the man who themselves got Don Anderson say, in the first poll, was polling 9%. He got 46% of the vote of the delegates. And the man who themselves had 49%, Wavell Hines, he only got 31.6%. And Patricia Duncan did much better than they said she would. Right? And that again is a Don Anderson poll. So Don Anderson needs to decide whether he has not arrived at his retirement age. When you look at these results, Don, you need to decide, it's your business or no? It's your business, and it's up to you what you want to do. But as far as I'm concerned, I think it's time for you to pack it in, my friend. You need to pack it in, because this thing is only going to look worse. Nobody's believing your polls, at least except for those who are benefiting from it. From 2016, you take your one mouth and say the JLP no commissioner to do any poll except a few constituencies. But the PNP have full trust in you, and they are able to manipulate your clear shortcomings. Whatever is going on with you, Don, when you're asking these questions and looking at the results, you're clearly not seeing that there's a problem and to send your people back out. And this is only me putting it nicely, because I could say other things. I could say other things about why you're coming up with these fantastic polls, but not even you are that stupid. Not even you are that stupid to come up with a poll so flawed and obviously flawed that even anybody can say that the thing is flawed, and it can be argued and shown to the public that there is something desperately wrong with your poll. So these polls are not credible. As far as I'm concerned, they are for entertainment purposes only. They are fiction, incredible, and unbelievable. And those things are not good. They make no sense at all and does not accord with reality. And the reality is there's a high degree of voter apathy, and there is nothing that is happening that is going to change that and make 100% of the voters come out to vote. There is nothing scientific about this poll that was done by Don Anderson. Nothing scientific either about the recent polls in the past. Same thing was happening, where he's having 60 odd percent and 70 odd percent of the people saying they're going to vote, and he didn't recognize that there was a problem with the poll. In essence, Don Anderson is a washed up pollster. He has passed his time, and it's time that he recognizes that he doesn't have it anymore, if he had ever had it at all. And I don't think he ever did. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing, liking, subscribing, as well as leaving your comments. So until next time, take good care of yourselves and walk good.